Next up, we have Todd Palmer. Todd, it's all yours.
All right. Thank you, Enrique. I wanted to talk a little bit this morning about Professor DebRoy. And so I can't take credit for the nice slides that'll show up afterwards. One of my academic brothers, Zhang, had put these together to nominate Professor DebRoy for an award, and they fit in well with the tone and sort of theme for what we're doing today. I guess we can start at the beginning with Professor DebRoy. He grew up in Calcutta, and so I'm used to the older spelling of it, or the others, the anglicized spelling of it anyway, and graduated with his PhD from Indian Institute of Science in Bangalore, and so under K.P. Abraham. And you'll notice even into his postdoc at Imperial College in London, he was really a steel guy early on, and he really did a lot of fairly seminal work, and I would say seminal, take away the fairly, but seminal work in the modeling of steelmaking processes. We tend to maybe look down upon those a little bit now, but I think everybody's going to find out how important they actually are here in the upcoming years. And when he moved on to MIT as a research associate and worked for a couple real giants, both in welding and in numerical modeling of materials processes in Tom Eager and in Julian Zacchelli. And with my interests in welding and joining, I think this is really where Professor DebRoy started to develop his, and with his longstanding collaborations with Stan David at Oak Ridge, to really move into the welding field. And I'll quote Tom Eager here a little bit, or at least paraphrase Tom. He's fairly famous for saying physicists don't want to study arc welding because arc welding is too hard. And so Professor DebRoy sort of took that challenge, I think. And really what we'll show is, with over 50 group members and collaborators worldwide, if you go to the next slide, we'll show a little bit of that, of what he has done as far as his work. Now, there's a lot of collaboration and a lot of this looking at it, but really a lot of what you see here really covers about everything we talk about in material science and manufacturing. And in welding and joining, all of that is happening really within about 2 or 3 millimeters. So the entire steel mill, as they would say when I was taking class, when I was an undergraduate here, and Professor H.K.D.H would talk about physical metallurgy, these were the types of things that he said is. And I remember Professor H.K.D.H even saying that the best way to ruin a perfectly good piece of metal was to weld it. And so Professor DebRoy has spent really a career looking at how to get around some of these issues. So we're ruining these perfectly good pieces of metal. And if you think about it, even the grain growth in Ti 6-4, hours and hours had been spent making that plate of Ti 6-4. And we're going to make a weld on it and ruin everything that we've done, and all those thermomechanical processes. Additive manufacturing is much the same way. So these are extremely complex processes that Professor DebRoy's modeling work has really helped to illuminate. And within the welding community, I can't stress where Professor DebRoy sits. If there were a Mount Rushmore of the 20th century welding community, he would be on there. Really just from his work in the modeling and understanding of heat transfer and fluid flow, from all of these processes. So you go to the next slide. Talk a little bit about, what he has done and sort of his impact. For a welder to have an H index of 78 and have over 23,000 citations is really unheard of. He is really at the top, probably the most cited welding researcher in the world. Really, especially even in additive manufacturing now, because really additive manufacturing is not really much more than just welding at the end of the day. And so a lot of what the groundwork he's laid is now being applied in additive manufacturing. And he's also started to branch out a little more into really that sort of public access, and that role of the scientist as the honest broker, as Roger Pelkey has written about. With the new book he's authored with, and that is correct, is Sir Harry Bhadeshia, one of those fairest physical metallurgists who actually has been knighted by the Queen. in Britain. So he's worked with Sir Harry for a number of years as well, in a lot of these areas, and we can see the selected awards. And he just was recently given a number of different awards. He's been highly honored by the American Welding Society, International Institute of Welding, ASM International, the Royal Academy. And one of the other things he's done that would put him up there on sort of that Mount Rushmore of welding engineers is really his work with Stan David and Sir Harry on the Science and Technology of Welding and Joining, which is a journal that he was a founding editor of, and is really sort of one of the ground sort of fundamental journals now within the welding and joining community. And you can see everywhere else he has been. So he's sort of been and done just about everything you can as far as that. And I don't want to say even here at Penn State, he won a faculty scholar medal. And I can remember the day. I remember, if anybody remembers Dick Tressler, I remember Dick Tressler walking down the hall looking for him. And I ran into him, and he basically had said, yes, that Professor DebRoy had won the faculty scholar medal back in the mid-90s. So go to the next slide. Sort of a little bit of an idea of who he's affected. And I will say it's really a large number of highly successful people. I'm not sure about the one in third row down in the first column, but really sort of the head of the class is Tom Zachariah. He's director at Oak Ridge National Lab. And if you met Tom, Tom has done a world of great things, but he was postdoc in Professor DebRoy's group, and really at the beginning wrote some of those real seminal papers on really laying the groundwork for modeling and numerical modeling of heat transfer and fluid flow in welding. Kanishka Tonkala, not a welder, diamond thin film growth. And so we can go on. Uday Paul, great guy up at Boston University, really really a steelmaking guy. My brother Wei Zhang at Ohio State, and a range of other people, even Brandon Ribick at America Makes. And so Professor DebRoy definitely has had an outsized impact on the world of welding. And really, since welding impacts everything, he's had an outsized impact probably across a lot of things that we don't really think about. So I think that's all I have, Enrique.
Thank you very much, Todd, for the very nice highlight of Tarasankar.